The docking bay of Haven 9 Station was never quiet. Cargo shuttles hissed as they released pressure seals. Repair crews shouted across the floor, their voices echoing off the high steel walls. Sparks rained from welding torches. The air smelled, faintly of fuel and machine oil. Mark Ryden stood near Bay 12, wiping his hands with an old rag. He had just finished fixing a freighter's navigation relay when the station commander called him through the comm unit. "Ryden, report to the Royal Hangar immediately," Commander Hale's voice said, brisk and urgent. Mark frowned. The Royal Hangar was reserved for diplomatic envoys and high-status guests. Engineers like him rarely set foot there. "What's the job, sir?" he asked. "You'll be briefed on arrival. And Ryden, this is delicate work. They asked for you. Specifically." That last part caught Mark's attention. People didn't usually ask for him. He was good at his job, but he was just a human mechanic trying to keep ships flying. He cleaned his tools, placed them in the portable repair kit, and made his way toward the hangar. 2 armed guards stood by the sealed doors. Their armor was polished, and the insignia on their shoulders marked them as part of the Diplomatic Security Corps. One of the guards scanned his ID. "Engineer Ryden, you're cleared." The massive doors slid open with a deep hum, revealing a ship unlike anything Mark had ever seen. It was sleek, silver blue, and shaped like a bird in flight. Its surface shimmered as if light itself didn't want to leave it. The markings along the hull were in an alien script that curved like flowing water. Standing near the ramp was the envoy herself, Princess Alira of the Sarathi. Mark had seen images of her race before, but never this close. The Sarathi had smooth, pale silver skin that seemed to catch the light in subtle shades. Her eyes were large and luminous, with a deep ocean hue. She wore a ceremonial robe over a partial suit of armor, but the chest plate was damaged, a jagged crack running through it. When she turned to look at him, Mark felt as though she was measuring not just his skill, but his character. "You are Engineer Ryden?" she asked in a calm, melodic voice. "That's me, Your Highness," he said, trying not to sound nervous. "I'm told you have a repair job." She glanced down at the damaged armor. "This chest plate is more than protection. It holds the core regulator for my life support system. The station's other engineers refused to touch it. They said you have steady hands." Mark set his toolkit on a nearby workbench. "I'll need to inspect it up close." She nodded once and stepped closer. When she removed the upper robe, the full armor came into view. It was unlike anything human engineers had built. An elegant blend of metal and living fiber, each piece joined as if grown into place rather than assembled. He took out a small scanner and ran it over the damaged section. "Crack runs through the regulator casing," he murmured, mostly to himself. "If I remove this, the whole system will power down for a few minutes. That safe?" "It will be uncomfortable," she admitted. "But I can endure." Mark started loosening the connectors, working with slow precision. The alloy responded to his tools strangely, almost as though it understood his touch. Then, as he reached for a cluster of thin, glowing strands inside, Alira spoke softly. "Careful. That part's sensitive." Mark froze. "You mean sensitive like fragile?" "Sensitive like alive," she replied. "Those strands carry bioenergy from my own body to the armor. Damage them, and I will feel it." He met her gaze and nodded. "Understood." His hands moved with extra caution now, gently lifting the strands aside without pulling or bending them. The scanner beeped occasionally, marking safe points for cutting away damaged fiber. The more he worked, the more he noticed patterns. Fine lines of script etched into the inner plates, symbols repeating in flowing circles. "What are these markings?" he asked. "They are life code," Alira said. "They bind the armor to its wearer. It learns from us, protects us. Some say it even remembers us." Mark didn't know if she meant that literally or as poetry, but it made the armor feel less like equipment and more like a companion. After several minutes, he removed the damaged casing, revealing the regulator core, a small pulsing crystal suspended in a web of fine wires. That crystal, Alira explained quietly, is linked to my heart rhythm. It adjusts to keep me balanced in environments that are not my homeworld. He was about to say something when his scanner chimed in warning. A faint energy distortion radiated from the crystal. Not enough to damage it, but unusual. He checked again. The reading was consistent. This regulator's been tampered with, he said slowly. Alira's expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Can you repair it? Yes. But if it's been tampered with, you might want to know who did it. That is a complicated question, she replied. We may speak of it later. For now, focus on your work, Engineer Ryden. Mark didn't press further. He replaced the damaged casing with a temporary stabilizer and began sealing it with adaptive resin from his kit. The resin formed to the shape of the armor seamlessly, restoring its structural integrity. Finally, he stepped back. That should hold until I can make a permanent replacement. Alira tested the movement of her shoulders, flexing slightly. You have done well, she said. Better than I expected. Mark packed up his tools. Just doing my job. But inside, he couldn't shake the thought. If someone really had tampered with her armor, this was more than a simple repair call. Someone had wanted her vulnerable. And now, whether he liked it or not, he was part of it. The next morning, Mark Ryden woke earlier than usual. Sleep had been difficult after the events in the royal hangar. He kept replaying Princess Alira's words in his head. Careful. That part's sensitive. It wasn't just the armor she had been talking about. He could feel it. His workshop was quiet at this hour. Only the distant hum of Haven 9's life support systems broke the silence. He checked his messages, expecting a routine list of repair requests. But instead, there was only one. Return to Royal Hangar at once. He grabbed his kit and went. The guards were the same as before, but they seemed more alert, scanning the corridor, with careful eyes. Inside the hangar, Princess Alira stood near her ship. She had replaced her ceremonial robe with a lighter outfit, still formal, but more practical for movement. Her armor's chest plate was still patched with the temporary resin Mark had applied. You came quickly, she said. You said it was urgent. She gestured for him to follow her aboard the ship. The interior was unlike anything Mark had seen. Smooth walls that shifted color subtly as they walked, light panels that glowed without a visible source. The air was cooler and faintly scented, like fresh rain. They entered a small room lined with workbenches. On one of them lay the removed chest plate, open to expose its inner systems. I continued your work last night, Alira said. But I need your hands again. There are layers here that I cannot adjust myself. Mark inspected the exposed regulator. Around the crystal core, he now noticed something new, delicate spirals of metal thread running into the armor's inner frame. They weren't part of the standard life support system. What's this? He asked, pointing at the threads. Alira's expression grew guarded. That is Sarathi heart steel, she said softly. It is rare and personal. Our armor is not built in factories. It is grown with a fragment of our own life code. Mark blinked. You're telling me this armor is part of you? In a way, she said. It recognizes my body, my voice, my thoughts. If someone else tries to wear it without permission, it will resist. Mark studied the life code patterns more closely. The etchings were so fine they were almost invisible, curling in complex loops. His tools weren't designed for something this delicate, but he had always been good at improvising. You said yesterday the damage might not have been an accident, Mark said quietly as he worked. I said nothing directly, she replied. But yes, this was no accident. The crack was placed with precision. The tampering was subtle, designed to fail when I was far from help. Any idea who? There are many who would see the alliance between my people and yours fail, Alira said. Some are enemies from old wars. Some are closer. Mark frowned. Closer, like on this station. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed a small device on the bench. It projected a rotating image, a map of the armor's systems, glowing lines connecting different components. This is the life code web, she explained. It shows how my energy flows through the armor. But last night I saw something I have never seen before, an extra pathway, hidden deep within the regulator's housing. Mark zoomed in on the projection. There it was, a faint, almost invisible line branching from the crystal to an unknown end point. That's not supposed to be there, is it? No, she said. It is a parasite circuit. It draws a trace of my energy away somewhere else. Mark's mind raced. A tracker? Possibly. Or a monitor. Either way, it means someone has a link to me, even from far away. The realization made the air feel heavier. If the parasite circuit had been active before Mark's repairs, someone might already know everything about her location and condition. Can you remove it? She asked. Yes, Mark said. But I'll have to take apart more of the plate. That could make the armor unstable for a few hours. I trust your skill, she said simply. He worked in silence for several minutes, carefully removing the parasite threads. They were so fine that even the slightest slip would have damaged the heart steel underneath. As he worked, he noticed the threads weren't just mechanical. They pulsed faintly, almost like veins. This thing's alive too, he muttered. It is not Scifi technology, Alira said. Whoever placed it here used something invasive. Mark removed the last piece and sealed the gap with a flexible shield patch. The armor seemed to relax, its surface shifting subtly back into its natural shape. When he looked up, Alira was studying him. Few humans could do what you have just done. Most would not even attempt it. I fix things, Mark said with a shrug. That's my job. Not just fix, she said. You listen to what the machine tells you. That is rare. Before, he could reply. The lights in the ship flickered for half a second. A faint chime rang from the wall. An alert signal. Alira tapped a control panel. A holographic display appeared, showing a small red icon moving across the hangar map. That's inside the station, Mark said. Yes, Alira replied. And it is coming toward us. Mark's instincts told him this was no coincidence. Whoever planted the parasite circuit might know it had been removed, and now they were coming to deal with the problem. We should call security, Mark said. I already have, she replied. But I doubt they will reach us first. Mark checked his toolkit. Most of it was for repairs, but he had a few items that could be used defensively if needed. He had never thought of himself as part of any diplomatic intrigue, yet here he was, standing beside an alien princess with a half-open suit of living armor, waiting for an unknown intruder. The footsteps came before the security team. Slow, steady, getting closer. Alira looked at him. Stay near the armor. If anything happens, protect the regulator above all else. Mark nodded, his heart pounding. The door panel hissed. The handle moved, and someone stepped inside. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and a shadow stepped into the small workroom. Mark's first thought was that the figure didn't move like a maintenance crew or station guard. The steps were smooth and deliberate, almost too quiet. The intruder wore a hooded suit that shimmered faintly, blending with the room's dim light. Identify yourself, Princess Alira said, her voice calm but firm. The figure didn't answer. Instead, they took one slow step toward the bench where the chest plate lay open. Mark instinctively stepped between the intruder and the armor. You lost? This is a restricted area. The figure's head tilted slightly, as if studying him. Then, without warning, a small pulse emitter slid from their sleeve. It wasn't aimed at Mark. It was aimed at the regulator core in the armor. Mark didn't think. He grabbed the nearest tool, a heavy spanner, and slammed it down on the bench's emergency shield control. A transparent barrier hissed into place between the intruder and the armor. The pulse hit the shield and scattered harmlessly. The intruder stepped back, but didn't run. They reached for something else on their belt. Alira moved swiftly, placing herself beside Mark. She raised her hand, and a thin wave of pale light formed in front of them. A Scifi defensive screen. "This is your only warning," she said. "Leave now." Still no response. Instead, the intruder pressed something on their wrist. The shimmer of their suit rippled, revealing more details. Sleek black plates, compact gear, and on the chest, a faint emblem Mark didn't recognize. The emblem didn't look Scifi or human. "Who are they?" Mark whispered. "Not Scifi," Alira murmured. "And not one of your people either. This is something else." Before they could speak further, the intruder moved suddenly, leaping toward the wall and activating magnetic grips. In seconds, they were climbing toward the ceiling vent. Mark dropped the shield and ran to grab his scanner. He pointed it toward the intruder and locked in a trace reading. "Got them. They're heading for the outer maintenance decks." Alira tapped her comm unit. "Security, intruder in my ship. Moving toward Deck 6. Intercept." A voice crackled back. "Copy. Teams en route." But Mark wasn't satisfied. If they came for the armor, they might have already planted something else. Alira's expression darkened. "We must check." They returned to the armor. Mark scanned the regulator again, this time going deeper into its inner casing. His stomach tightened as the display lit up with a red marker. "There," he said, pointing. "Tiny device lodged in the regulator's housing. It's shielded. That's why I didn't see it earlier." "What is it?" Alira asked. Mark carefully lifted the component out with precision clamps. It was a flat, circular object no larger. Then a coin, with intricate ridges along the edge. "I'd guess a tracker," Mark said. "But look, it's wired into the energy lines. That means it can also interfere with power flow." Alira's gaze hardened. "A power disruptor. If it activated while I was away from safety, my armor would shut down. My life support would fail." Mark exhaled slowly. "So this wasn't just about following you. This was an assassination attempt." "Yes," she said quietly, "and not a clumsy one. Whoever did this knew exactly how Scifi armor works." Mark studied the device. It was nothing like Scifi craftsmanship. Rougher, more mechanical, yet efficient. And the power cell inside was tuned to a frequency humans didn't use. He sealed the device in a containment case from his kit. "We can't just destroy it. This thing might be the only lead to whoever's behind this." Alira nodded. "You think like a strategist. I think like an engineer," Mark said. "You can't fix a problem if you don't know where it started." Her eyes held his for a moment. "Perhaps in your people those two are not so different." Before they could say more, the comm crackled again. "Princess Alira, security here. The intruder escaped into the utility conduits. We're sweeping the area, but no visual yet." Alira's jaw tightened. "They will not be found if they do not wish to be." Mark thought for a moment. "If that's true, then they may try again. And if they can get past your ship's defenses once, they might know the station's weaknesses too." "Then we must be ready," she said. Mark closed the armor's regulator housing, now free of the disruptor. He reinforced the stabilizer he'd added earlier, making sure no foreign signal could access it again. Alira picked up the armor piece and locked it back into place on her chest. The living metal seemed to shift and mold itself to her form again, the faint crack now invisible. "How's it feel?" Mark asked. She flexed her shoulders and arms. "Whole, strong again, and thanks to you, safe." "Safe for now," Mark said. "But until we know who planted that thing, I'd keep your guard up." "I always do," she replied. Just then, the door slid open again, this time with security officers in full armor. They scanned the room and confirmed the area was clear, and Officer approached Alira. Your Highness, we'll increase patrols around your ship. We'll also assign a team to shadow you during your stay. She inclined her head. Thank you. But understand, this attack was precise. Whoever is behind it may not be deterred by more guards. The officer glanced at Mark. We'll also need a statement from you, engineer. Mark nodded. Sure, but make it quick. I've still got a lot of work to do on that armor. The officer hesitated. With respect, sir, maybe it's better if we take the armor into custody until— No, Alira said sharply. The armor does not leave my possession. It stays with me and him. She gestured toward Mark. The officer looked between them but didn't argue. Understood. When the security team left, Mark let out a slow breath. You just volunteered me for guard duty, didn't you? Alira gave a faint smile. Not guard duty, partnership. Mark wasn't sure if that was better or worse, but one thing was certain. He was now deeply involved in something far bigger than a simple repair job. And if the person behind the sabotage had failed once, they would try again. Mark Ryden didn't consider himself an action hero. He fixed things, ships, drones, engines, not political crises. But now, walking beside Princess Alira through the corridors of Haven 9, he felt like he had stepped into someone else's story. Security had doubled around the royal hangar. 2 guards walked ahead and 2 followed behind. Alira moved with calm grace, but Mark noticed her eyes scanning the shadows, always alert. The security chief, a stocky officer named Vargas, walked on Alira's left. We've checked the maintenance logs, he reported. The intruder entered the station 3 days ago using forged clearance. They erased their trail, but we know they're still here. Alira nodded. Then we must find them before they strike again. Mark was about to agree when his wrist scanner beeped. He checked the display. A faint signal, matching the disruptor device they had found, was moving nearby. That's them, he said quickly. Or at least, something they left behind. Vargas signaled the guards. Split off. Track that signal. The security team moved down a side corridor, but Mark's scanner warned him again. The signal wasn't staying still. It was moving fast. They're not running away, Mark said slowly. They're circling back. Before anyone could react, the overhead lights flickered. A shadow dropped from the ceiling vents just ahead, landing in a crouch. The intruder. Without hesitation. They threw a small sphere onto the floor. It burst in a flash of white mist, filling the corridor. Mark coughed, eyes stinging. The mist wasn't toxic, but it blinded vision sensors. He could hear boots moving rapidly through it. Stay. Close! Vargas shouted. Mark kept one hand on Alira's shoulder to make sure they didn't get separated. His scanner gave only brief flashes of movement. The intruder was heading toward the station's lower decks. When the mist began to clear, Mark saw the intruder disappearing through a service hatch. Come on, he said. Vargas swore under his breath, but followed, 2 guards close behind. The hatch led to a narrow maintenance shaft lined with cables and pipes. The air was warmer here, and the hum of machinery was louder. The intruder moved quickly, using magnetic grips to climb along the side panels. Mark tried to follow, but his boots slipped on the smooth metal. Alira, however, moved with surprising agility. Her armor's leg plates extended small stabilizers, helping her keep pace. She glanced back at Mark. Your tools. Can you disable their grips? Mark's mind worked fast. If I can get close enough, yes. They pushed forward. The intruder looked back once, then sped up, but the shaft narrowed ahead into a zero-gravity section. As soon as they entered it, everyone began to float. This was Mark's chance. He pulled a small multi-spanner from his kit, adjusted it to emit a magnetic interference pulse, and aimed. A short bust echoed, and the intruder's grips flickered. They lost their hold on the wall and tumbled slightly. Vargas lunged, trying to grab them, but the intruder twisted away and kicked off toward an access hatch at the far end. They're getting away, one guard shouted. Mark felt frustration. rising, until he noticed something. The intruder's chest plate. There was a faint bulge exactly where Alira's armor regulator would be. That's their weak point, he muttered. Same spot as your armor's sensitive part. Alira understood instantly. Then that is where we strike. They reached the hatch just as the intruder slipped through. Beyond it was the hydroponics section, a huge green space filled with rows of nutrient tanks, artificial sunlight streaming from panels high above. The air smelled of plants and water. Here, movement was harder to track. The intruder used the dense rows to vanish from sight. Fan out, Vargas ordered. Mark's scanner picked up faint heat traces, but there were too many. The hydroponics heat lamps confused the readings. He crouched, thinking. The intruder had a mission. They wouldn't run forever. If they were here, it meant something in this section mattered to them. He checked the map overlay. Hydroponics connected to the water filtration hub, and that hub fed coolant into the hangar systems. They're heading for the filtration hub, Mark called. They ran, weaving between rows of green plants and tall support beams. The sound of running water grew louder. At the hub entrance, the intruder was already there, crouched over a control panel. Their hands moved quickly, planting a device. Alira stepped forward. Stop! The intruder looked up. For the first time, Mark saw their face, partially covered by a mask, but the eyes were sharp and alien, with vertical pupils like a predator's. They didn't stop. Instead, they activated the device. Lights on the panel turned red. Mark ran forward, shoving the intruder away from the console. They fought briefly, the intruder fast and trained, Mark relying on instinct and a heavy wrench from his belt. Alira joined in, striking toward the chest plate's bulge. Her armored fist connected with a sharp clang. The intruder staggered, systems in their armor sparking. Vargas's team seized the moment, tackling the intruder to the ground. The device they had planted was ripped free. Mark examined it quickly. Coolant disruptor. If this had gone off, the hangar's temperature controls would have failed. Your ship's systems could have overheated. Maybe even exploded. Alira's expression was unreadable, but her voice was calm. Then this was more than an attack on me. It was an attack on the entire alliance. The intruder struggled. But the guards bound their wrists with magnetic restraints. We'll take them to the security wing, Vargas said. You two should get back to the hangar. As they left hydroponics, Mark looked at Alira. Whoever's behind this isn't just after you. They're trying to make humans and Sarathi turn against each other. Yes, she agreed quietly. And now we have proof. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The intruder had been caught, but the real mastermind was still out there, watching. The security wing of Haven 9 was quiet, lit by a steady blue glow from the wall panels. Mark Ryden stood with Princess Alira just outside the holding room. Through the glass, they could see the captured intruder sitting in a restraint chair, wrists bound with magnetic cuffs. The mask had been removed, revealing a face neither human nor Sarathi. The skin was pale bronze, with faint ridges running from the jawline up toward the temples. The eyes, sharp and yellow, followed every movement with calm calculation. Vargas entered from the other side, holding a data pad. We ran the scans. No ID in our records, not even a match in Sarathi archives. Alira's brow furrowed. Then this person belongs to a faction we do not know, or one that hides in the shadows. Mark glanced at the data pad. Anything from the gear we took? Mixed. Tech, Vargas said. Some parts look Sarathi, others human, but most of it's unknown. Whoever supplied them knows how to hide their trail. Alira stepped into the room. The intruder looked at her without fear, as if they'd been expecting her. You tried to kill me, Alira said evenly. The intruder tilted their head slightly. I was told to stop you. By whom? A faint smile crossed the intruder's face. Names are nothing. What matters is the mission. Mark leaned on the doorframe. Let me guess. The mission was to make it look like humans sabotage the Scifi, or the other way around, stir up trouble, break the alliance. The intruder didn't confirm, but the lack of denial was answer enough. You failed, Alira said. And because you failed, the alliance will grow stronger. The intruder's eyes narrowed. You think you have won? This was only one strike. Others will follow. You cannot stop all of them. Vargas tapped the control panel. That's enough. We'll keep them locked down. You two have work to do. As they left the security wing, Mark spoke quietly to Alira. He's right about one thing. This won't be the last attempt, which means your armor needs to be ready for anything. Alira nodded. Then we must finish what we started. Back in the royal hangar, the chest plate lay open again on the workbench. The temporary resin repair Mark had applied days ago had held well, but it wasn't meant to be permanent. Mark rolled up his sleeves. This time, I'm not just patching it. I'm reinforcing it so no one can pull the same trick again. He removed the resin carefully, exposing the regulator core. The crystal pulsed with a faint light, its rhythm matching Alira's heartbeat. You'll need to be out of the armor for a few hours, Mark said. And while I work, the core will have to be disconnected. That means no life support from the suit. I will endure, Alira replied calmly. He began by replacing the damaged alloy with a hybrid plate, human-forged titanium fused with Scifi heart steel fragments. It took careful heating and bonding, but the result was a surface far stronger than before. Next, he added shielding around the regulator, making sure no foreign signal could reach it. The shielding was tuned to block the same frequency the disruptor device had used. Alira watched quietly, occasionally answering questions about Scifi designs when he needed them. She seemed curious about his methods. You adapt quickly, she said. Most human engineers would not risk mixing metals from two different worlds. Mark smiled slightly. Most engineers aren't fixing armor for alien royalty on a space station with assassins running around. When the new plate was fitted, he began upgrading the internal systems. He added a hidden sensor mesh that would alert Alira instantly if any tampering was detected. The mesh could also send a silent signal to his own scanner, just in case he wasn't nearby when trouble started. Finally, he sealed the armor with an adaptive coating that allowed the heart steel to breathe and remain connected to Alira's life code. As he worked, Mark realized something. You know, the first time you told me careful, that part's sensitive. I thought you were just warning me about fragile tech. But now I get it. This armor is part of you. Hurting it would hurt you. Alira's gaze met his. Yes, and you handled it with care. He locked the final plate into place and stepped back. It's ready. Alira put the armor back on. The living metal seemed to flow into place, adjusting perfectly to her shape. When it clicked into full seal, a faint hum filled the air as the systems came online. How's it feel? Mark asked. She flexed her arms and shoulders. Stronger, balanced, and protected. She looked at him with something close to a smile. You have not just repaired it. You have made it mine again. Mark packed his tools. Just doing my job. You have done more than that, she said quietly. You have earned my trust. The next morning, the station's diplomatic council convened. Representatives from both human and Scifi delegations gathered in the main chamber. The captured disruptor device and the intruder's gear were presented as evidence of a sabotage plot. Mark stood in the back watching as Alira spoke with calm authority. She explained the attack, the danger it posed to the Alliance, and how it had been stopped. Her words carried weight. By the end of the meeting, both delegations agreed to increase cooperation, share more security data, and conduct joint patrols. Afterward, Alira found Mark outside the chamber. The talks will continue, she said. But for now, we have bought peace. Mark gave a small nod. Until the next person decides to try something. She tilted her head slightly. Then we will face it together. Before boarding her ship, she handed him a small object, a crystal the size of a coin, etched with flowing patterns. This is a Sarathi oath stone, she explained. It means trust. Keep it, and know that you have a friend among my people. Mark closed his fingers around it. Thanks, Your Highness. She gave him one last look before walking up the ramp to her ship. The armor gleamed under the hangar lights, whole again, ready for whatever came next. The morning sun cast long, pale beams across the docking bay of Haven 9 Station. The air was crisp, and the quiet hum of the station's machinery created a steady background rhythm. Princess Alira stood near her sleek royal cruiser, fully dressed in her repaired and strengthened armor. The chest plate gleamed with the hybrid metal Mark had helped forge, a symbol of two worlds working together. Mark Ryden watched from a short distance. He held the small Sarathi oath stone in his palm, the crystal cool against his skin. It was a reminder of everything that had happened, the danger, the trust, the fragile hope for peace. Alira approached quietly. "Are you ready to say goodbye?" she asked softly. Mark nodded. "For now. But I have a feeling we'll meet again." She smiled, a rare and gentle expression. "I hope so. The galaxy is wide, and our paths may cross in many ways." They stood side by side, watching as the royal crew completed the final boarding checks. The cruiser's engines began to hum, a low and steady sound that promised speed and safety. Before stepping aboard, Alira turned to Mark. "This armor, it is more than protection. It carries my life code, my trust, and now, your skill." Mark looked at her with honest surprise. "I never thought I'd be trusted with something so personal." "You earned that trust," she said, "not just by fixing the armor, but by understanding what it means to carry a responsibility beyond oneself." Mark smiled. "Sounds like something humans do too." She nodded. "Yes, we are not so different." The boarding ramp lowered with a hiss, and Alira stepped into her ship. The door sealed behind her with a smooth glide. Mark stayed on the platform, watching as the engines ignited and the cruiser lifted off. Its silver hull reflected the morning light as it accelerated into the vast darkness of space. As the ship disappeared from sight, Mark felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. The immediate danger was over, but the future was uncertain. The alliance between humans and Sarathi was fragile, but stronger now because of what had happened. He turned and walked back into the station. The halls of Haven 9 buzzed with life. Traders, diplomats, engineers, all working to keep the fragile peace alive. Mark's thoughts drifted back to the oath stone in his hand. He knew it was more than a gift. It was a promise, a bond, between two very different peoples who had chosen to trust each other. Later that day, he found a quiet corner in the station's observation deck. Through the large windows, stars sparkled like distant lanterns. He held the oath stone up to the light, watching the patterns inside glow faintly. "Careful. That part's sensitive," he whispered to himself, remembering Alira's warning from their first meeting. But now he understood. It was not just about the armor's fragile technology. It was about trust, friendship, and the courage to protect what is precious. Mark knew that in the vast universe, humans had much to learn from other species, and that sometimes the smallest act of care could change the course of history. As the stars twinkled beyond, Mark smiled, feeling ready for whatever came next, because this was only the beginning.